It's Barb King, and I'm really excited to bring to you another guide of Curse of Strahd, Legends of Barovia, an expanded campaign. In this video guide, we're going to be covering the Larders of the Ill Omen. This is the floor right below the main floor of Castle Ravenloft. Now, before I get started, a huge shout out to all of my supporters, especially those legendary supporters. We have over 100 of them now helping me through this epic journey, creating free PDF guides for the community and player handouts. And as a special thank you, member supporters receive bonus content, including Theater of the Mind art, tokens, voice acting sound files, and yes, I take all of that content, I put them into Foundry Adventure modules as a special thank you gift so you don't have to do the work. If you're interested in supporting me and becoming a member, you can. There's a link in the description down below. Now, a couple other special acknowledgments. Obviously, my partner in this, DM Andy, we're looking at a gorgeous battle map by him. This is the free version, the 4K version. However, if you want the 8K version or ones with special effects, weather, or more cobwebs or ghostly images and stuff, go over to his Patreon page, check them out. They're all available in his map packs. There's a link in the description down below. Also, a huge shout out to Blair. None of this would be happening in Foundry if it wasn't for Blair and his Foundry support. If you're interested in creating your own Foundry adventures or modules for Foundry, check out Blair. There's a link to his Patreon down below. Now let's jump into this. Now, this particular floor can be a bit confusing. It sits right below the main floor and directly above the dungeons in Castle Ravenloft. And you'll notice there's a lot of stairs here. Now, once you read the different rooms and what these rooms are about, a picture begins to emerge and you realize what this floor was prior to Strahd becoming a vampire. This entire floor was used as the servant, staff, and guard rooms and guard quarters for Castle Ravenloft. Everything from staff and guards and everything was run out of here. And when we start looking at the rooms, they start making sense, as do the staircases. So before we get to each room, let's go give this a little overview here. Now, the first room that you see here, this hallway in this big hallway with a staircase going up, this staircase leads to the first floor, the main floor, the servant's entrance. So if you're on the servant's entrance on the main floor here, this is the servant's entrance, and it goes down right here. That takes you out down here, which makes sense because right to the left of this staircase, to the right of the staircase, we have the wine room with the wine casks in it. And then right over to the right, or left of my facing it, is the kitchen here where all the meals are prepared. And then right next to that, you have the staff's room. So at one time, I imagine there were several staff members in this room. Now, across the hall, there's a doorway, and this goes through that area K61, I believe, which is the elevator trap. You'll find a circular staircase here. And this staircase goes right up to the first floor, directly across from the dining hall. So this makes sense. You know, the servants would be bringing food up the staircase, and if you go on the first floor, it would be right here is where you would come out and you would be able to serve food to the people that are dining there in Castle Ravenloft. If you happen to go down those stairs, though, here, this comes out right at the dungeon where the cells are, which also would make sense because, well, you got to feed your prisoners. So if you come down here, this would take you down to the dungeon so that you could feed your prisoners. Now, the other part of this floor is mostly going to be guards and the Kingsmen, or Captain of the Guard. So down here we have the guards chamber. The Hall of Bones was once the hall where the guards would eat, obviously close to the kitchen, so that the staff can also service the guards there for meals. And then this staircase right here takes them up to the ramparts and the parapet. If we go up on the first floor, that comes out right here, so the guards can get up to these guard towers where you've got these arrow slits, you know, and protect Ravenloft from any attackers. Now, if we head to the north part of this map, we get up into the Kingsmen's Hall and Kingsmen Quarters. This would be like the captain of the guard or knights here. This is where they would meet. This is their quarters. And this particular staircase leads up to the first floor to the bottom of the main tower, the tower hall stairs. So they would be coming up here, which they could continue to go up these circular stairwell. This is where the Heart of Sorrow is, and get up to the ramparts from here. So that clearly, obviously, would make sense as well. And then the last stairway we have that's connected to this floor is the secret stairway out of the Chamberlain's office. Now, the Chamberlain's office is like the manager of the castle, right? They're in charge of the logistics of bringing in food and wood and everything that you would need to maintain a castle, making sure the staff is taken care of, the guards taken care of. So this is kind of a logistics management office for the castle. It's now where Rahadin does his work, is in here. It's his office. And there is, of course, a secret stairwell that would lead down, of course, to the torture chamber. So if we go down to the dungeon, this staircase is this one right here. It comes down and leads down here to where the torture chamber is, which would make sense. Rahadin probably would be involved in scheduling torture for the master of the of Ravenloft, in this case, Strahd. Now, there is two confusing areas here because there's two staircases that are depicted, but we don't know where they go because they don't open up onto this floor. The first one is the big round staircase right here, and this is the spire of Ravenloft, the 360-foot spire. And this is a circular stone staircase that goes all the way to the top of the spire, and it finishes all the way down in the catacombs. And if you look at the catacombs here, this is where it comes out, right over here. This is the bottom of that big circular staircase, and it goes all the way up to the top of the spire at the very top. There's only one entrance from the top and the bottom. There's one other entrance that's on the first floor, and that's right here where the chapel is. You can go in here, and this is that spiral K18 staircase. The center of that is the shaft, which only opens up in the catacombs and at the very top. By the way, it's K18A. It's a great place where Strahd might retreat to, spider climbing. If he's taking any radiant damage or any damage and he needs to heal up, he would probably try to retreat into that K18 area shaft. Now, the other staircase, which often creates a lot of confusion, is this strange one here. It does not open up onto this floor. You might be wondering where this one goes, because if you try to look at this shape throughout the map, you won't see the same shape because it's actually two circular staircases that are attached. If we start at the bottom of the staircase, it starts in the dungeon, and it is right here. This is the K83 spiral staircase. This staircase only goes one place, and that's all the way up to Strahd's study. So if we go up this staircase, the next level is here, which is the next level above the dungeon and the torture room, right? And there, in this room, there's also a tapestry of Strahd's father. If you go up another floor, you're going to be going up through the first floor. This is this circular staircase right here. Whoop. Right here. This one right here. And if you go up again, you're going to go through the court of the count, and then and it opens up in the rooms of the weeping in his study right here. So this is an area for Strahd to get down to that torture chamber or the brazen room. So you have the one staircase, the secret staircase for Rahadin, going from the Chamberlain's office down to the dungeon, and then he can call upon Strahd, and Strahd, or whoever the lord of the castle was at that time, could go down this staircase all the way down to the dungeon. So that kind of gives you an idea of what the purpose of this floor was and where all these staircases go. And once you see that and you kind of understand it, it all starts to slowly make sense. Okay, let's start off in the main hallway we get here, which is K62, the servants' hall. And this is where you're going to run into Cyrus. And Cyrus is a mongrel folk. He's the servant of Ravenloft. All the other guards have been killed. So he's kind of like the handyman in making dinner, even though the vampires don't eat, but it makes it dinner if anybody comes to visit. For instance, if you're invited for dinner to Castle Ravenloft, he would be making dinner, and he would be most likely serving the dinner to you if you want to introduce him during your dinner with Strahd. He would head up this stairwell right here and then come out of that stairwell to bring the food into the dining hall. He's kind of a peculiar Mongol folk. He mumbles to himself, obviously living in this kind of depressive, bleak, macabre, dark place. He's probably gone a little senile, a little crazy. So he's always mumbling to himself. And we're going to get into, you're going to see some of the habits he has, which are kind of sickening. Now, he is going to, if you're running rules as written, try to trigger the elevator trap by leading the players in here. I'm not going to go through the elevator trap in this video. If he does and it triggers the sleeping gas, he will take the players up to the guest bedroom in the spires. Otherwise, he's pretty much going to leave the players alone. You can try to engage with him, but he's going to be talking nonsense, mumbling a lot to himself. He's just going to seem crazy and peculiar. He does have some interesting hobbies, as I mentioned. There's also a key around his neck that opens up the treasure chest, which is in the peak right above the Heart of Sorrow. And he also has a eye, hag's eye, that he's wearing around the neck. He's not aware that it's a hag's eye, but he's wearing that with the key that's both around his neck. Now, if we go to the right part of the map over here, we get into the wine cellar. And I've got a Theater of the Mind map for this, and I've made a couple of changes in here. We pretty much left it rules as written with the casks. I did include a wine bottle in here of Champagne de l'Estampes that the players can find. That leads to that side quest by Petra in the Vistani camp at Tesser Pool. You remember he asks for a bottle of Champagne de l'Estampes, which will pay you 500 gold or trade you for a magic item. So if you do happen to find that, this is one of the few locations to find the Champagne de l'Estampes. The other thing that the players will notice if they move the wine barrels around is underneath some of the rotten wine barrels, etched in the floor, is an old teleportation circle. Now, this is long forgotten. Strahd doesn't even know that this teleportation circle exists. And the teleportation circle goes to one place, and that is in the earthen cellar in Wizards of Wine. You remember in the cellar of Wizards of Wine, there's a crack in the wall that goes in kind of like this earthen part of the cellar. In there is where the other teleportation circle is. And to activate the teleportation circle, you need to recite the wine blessing, which is found, by the way, in the book Wines of Barovia. That's a player handout you can download from the Ko-fi page. I'll put a link to that. It's a free player handout. And in there is a blessing. And the blessing goes, "Let this wine, sweet and bold, warm our hearts and soothe our souls. With each sip, let us find delight and banish all worries with its might." That will activate the teleportation circle. So you can teleport from the Wizards of Wine right into here, into the wine storage, wine cask room. Now, it was created centuries ago in Strahd, and it hasn't been used in centuries, and Strahd doesn't know it exists. No one's really sure why it was created, but most likely it was used to deliver wine to the castle because, well, Wizards of Wine, it was probably some wizard that initially created the wines long before the Martikovs were there, and to make his life easier, he would just teleport the wine, for Wizards of the Wine right here into the castle. Probably that's, in my head, that's the kind of lore that I made up, but that's the teleportation circle. And I wanted to include this because I wanted to create some alternative ways for the players to get in and out of Castle Ravenloft. There is the teleportation in the Brazen Room, but you don't even know about that until you get to the Brazen Room. This is the way you get into the castle secretly. So think about how to weave that into your campaign. Maybe you can. That book is available, by the way, in the bookstore in Vallaki. Several people have it. It's a fairly common book. It's the history of the wines of Barovia with that blessing in it. And maybe someone can tell you that there's a rumor that there used to be a teleportation circle or something like that. The other thing in here is we've got the yellow mold. That's pretty much rules as written. So those were the changes I made to K63, the wine area. Now, if we go back here, we get into the kitchen. And I changed this. I didn't like the skeletons' heads floating in the water and they burst out and attack you. There's already going to be skeletons and other creatures down here, I wanted to make this a little different. So in this situation, if Cyrus is in here, you know, there's a stench in here. It's a nasty, messy cooking chamber. There's a table. You can see Andy's details are pretty amazing. So he's cooking in this pot, and if the players get near the cauldron, a torrent of searing, ebony, black fluid goes erupting from the cauldron, splattering against the ceiling. And all of a sudden, if you look up at the ceiling, you start to observe this inky, viscous liquid kind of coalescing on the ceiling, kind of. And all of a sudden, like, these tentacles shoot out at you and start attacking the players. And that is a giant black pudding. So imagine this cauldron just kind of going, you know, up onto the ceiling, and all of a sudden starts coalescing up there, and then now you're in an engagement with a black pudding rather than having skeletons coming up out of the cauldron. I just thought it was a cooler scene. Now, if you, upon examining the room, the characters will discover a tomb containing what seems to be an archaic language. It is a recipe, magic, ancient recipes of dark magic, and it's possible that Cyrus was attempting to concoct one, which resulted in creating this black pudding. You might be wondering, too, when you're having the dinner with Strahd and the food's being cooked out of this rancid kitchen, why does it taste so good? Well, that's because Strahd uses one of his favorite spells to change the taste of the food to make it the most delightful dinner that you've ever had. And if you want to know more about running Strahd, there's a free PDF guide to running Strahd, including the spells that he likes to use. I'll put a link to Strahd's guide down below. All right, so that's the kitchen. I actually have a Theater of the Mind map in here for the kitchen. So you've got that cauldron in there, and then that black pudding would go shooting up out of the cauldron as the players get near it. I think that would be really cool. Obviously, Cyrus, if he sees that, is going to flee, start screaming and running out of this room, as would any normal person. Your player characters obviously will try to fight it. Okay, when we get down to the end of the hallway, we're going to get up to the butler's quarters. And this was probably, in my mind, there was probably several servants at one time before Strahd turned into a vampire that would be sleeping in here. The wait staff, maybe the cleaning staff, maybe the cook, all using this quarters. Now, what you're going to notice here is his quarters. This is Cyrus's quarters now, and you're going to notice it's just covered in filth, and you'll notice that there's all kinds of stuff strewed across the floor. There's fragments of debris, including old shattered swords and crumpled shields and some helmets piled around. If you investigate it, you discover only damaged weapons and clutter there. Now, if Cyrus is present in here, he'll start sifting through the mounds of the stuff, and you know, he's mumbling a little bit senile and crazy. He'll start reciting dates and the names and the macabre deaths and how they died and the manner of their deaths as he's picking up each thing. You know, imagine him, he's picking up this old helmet. The helmet of, it was in 732, adventurer. What was his name? Oh, Raylox the fighter, that's right. Oh yes, he was destroyed by a vampire spawn. This is all that's left. I just imagine him just sifting through that stuff, remembering dates and details of deaths as some kind of this creepy character. All right, we get down here to the elevator trap. Again, I'm not going to cover it in this video, but the stairwell, this is where the bottom of the trap, Cyrus will try to lead them in there, triggering that trap. But the stairwell does lead up to the dining hall and also leads down to the dungeon, which I covered here in the beginning. When we get into the Hall of Bones in here, I made a little bit of a change in here. This is desecrated ground, so the skeletons in here are going to have advantage on all their saving throws. The undead do, because it's desecrated ground. And I got a Theater of the Mind map of this one too. Here it is, the Hall of Bones. It's really, really creepy. Now, when the players go in there, it's going to be a shocking scene. They're going to go, this hall is littered with bones. There's bones rising up to the ceiling, skulls mounted everywhere, a table constructed out of bones. This is where Cyrus has been collecting all these bones and building this. I mean, this is like he's got nothing to do in the castle, so he's he's stripping these dead adventurers and any dead creatures that he finds and throwing that stuff in his room. And then he's putting all the bones in here, and kind of, I see this as almost kind of his own private shrine, his own temple that he's been building here. And it's just creepy as all hell, if you ask me. Interesting enough, when I was looking up some bones, there's two interesting places in the world if you want to see something that looks just like this in the real world. One is in the Catacombs beneath Paris. They have skulls everywhere. But there is also a temple here in Portugal. I reside in Portugal, by the way. There is a chapel of bones where all the walls and ceiling and chapel is all constructed out of skulls and bones. I'll put a link in the description down below so you can see it. And I imagine some of the ideas come from that chapel of bones. And it kind of was, I was thinking about that as Cyrus is putting this together. It's kind of his private space where he probably comes in here and stacks them up and looks at them, and you know, it's this kind of weird temple. Now, I imagine when we look at the Larders of Omen, that nobody other than Cyrus goes in this area, right? There's no reason for Strahd to come into the Hall of Bones or into the kitchen or into any of this area, and neither does Rodden. He has his own entrance right here. He probably comes down this way, right? He has no reason to go through here. So I imagine Rodden, nobody really knows that, you know, how creeped out and weird Cyrus has gotten, and he's stacking all these bones in here. Now, it is possible in here, if you mess with any of the bones, try to destroy anything, all of a sudden you get these skeletons. 3d6 skeletons begin to attack out of these corners. So I added this in here. So, you know, it's desecrated ground, but I imagine if, you know, you're messing with anything in there, the bones in the corners start to form together, forming skeletons, and they start attacking the players. I got some of those in here now, and I imagine that happens because it's a combination of Cyrus kind of turning this into this temple, this macabre temple of bones, this hall of bones, desecrated ground. And if you start removing or destroying anything in here, the bones try to protect the fellow bones and stuff in there. So it's this kind of super creepy location. Now, if we head to the south through here, this door is stuck to the guards run. And I made it stuck because I want to make it difficult. You make it like a strength 15 DC check in here. It's kind of swollen shut. It hasn't been used in a long time. And I imagine that because all the guards in here are dead. They've been dead for a long time. Cyrus has no reason to go in here. Rodden has no reason to go in here. So there's no reason at all for anybody to go in there. So the door's kind of been swollen shut. This area, as well as I made it desecrated ground. In fact, almost all of it down here is desecrated ground. Now, I did make a change in here in the guards' quarters because it was just fairly empty except for the 10 skeletons that will come out and attack you. Again, skeletons for your characters at this point are going to be low level, pretty easy to deal with, so they become more of a nuisance. So I wanted to throw something in here that was very interesting. So as the players are down here in this hall, it's cold and damp, 10-foot wide passage running east to west, and it's blanketed with a sticky yellow lichen on its ceiling. Adjacent to the passage, there are 10-foot square alcoves holding decay, cots, and rags, the skeletal remains of the castle guards, which were obviously killed. The yellow lichen actually causes this disease that I called chaos pox. So if a player touches this, now first of all, if somebody has detect poison or disease, they will detect, they go, oh, that yellow lichen causes chaos pox. If the player touches the yellow lichen, they will get chaos pox. And you don't going to tell the players this, they're going to touch it. You as a DM is going to roll a 1d4. In 1d4 hours after the infection, the symptoms will begin to manifest. You're going to tell the player, you know, within an hour to 4 hours, you're starting to feel disoriented. You have a fever. Your skin breaks out in these little yellow bumps and your eyes turn yellow. Now, what you suffer from this particular disease is you're going to have disadvantage on all dexterity checks and saves. You're disoriented. You've kind of lost your balance a little bit. You're also going to suffer nightmares. So check the campaign guide on how to run nightmares. The creature who suffers from chaos pox must make a short rest every hour, and they might take a long rest every 12 hours, or they become unconscious for 1d10 minutes. I mean, they're just so exhausted. I didn't want to run levels of exhaustion. It's just they become unconscious for 1d10 minutes. So if they're not short resting every hour or long resting every 12 hours, they're going to fall unconscious. So you're going to want to deal with this. The creature only gains 50% of their hit points from any type of healing. So it's going to be hard for them to heal up. They're going to have disadvantage on any of their dexterity saves or checks. Now, these conditions will persist unless they're cured by lesser restoration or an herbal healing remedy, which they can get from Lila, the herbalist, actually secretly the water fae in Vlaki, or Anya from the potion shop in the Vlaki, or they could probably get a remedy from her sister Sonia, who is in Kresk. So anybody that would be an herbalist could figure out which herbs they need to get rid of chaos pox, or again, lesser restoration. What I would also do is, to make the skeleton counter more interesting, is figure out how to include that yellow lichen in it. Maybe one of the skeleton kind of pushes or falls or pushes one of the players in to the wall where it's sticky, and the player, maintains their balance by putting their hand up, and their hand's all sticky with this yellow lichen, and now they're going to suffer from chaos pox. So figure out how you want to include that in that combat encounter, making it something more interesting there. And also that door being stuck is going to make it interesting if they're going to try to escape. If they've come down this route here, it's going to make them difficult for them to escape. I would make the door stuck, unless they keep it pried open. When the door shuts, it sticks again. It's really hard to open and close this particular door. Now, when we go north here, we have the Kingsmen Hall in here, and I left this pretty much rules as written. I mean, Strahd came in here after he transformed into a vampire, and this was like the captain of the guard. This was those loyal to him. He just slaughtered them to a man. And you'll find like shields and stuff in here, some stuff stuck in the walls, spears stuck in the wall, like with amazing force. I mean, again, this happened centuries ago, but it has not changed. And Cyrus hasn't cleaned it up. He probably doesn't even go in here, but it's probably also a reminder to Rahadin or whoever walks in here, I don't want to get on Strahd's bad side. Now, a couple of the guards managed to survive and escape, right? And you find out about that story by the book Blessed Life of St. Andrew. That's the book that you will find. You can find it in any of the churches or at the Abbey, but it's also the book that Father Petrovich in Vlaki will give to the players, the Blessed Life of St. Andrew, that tells the story of the church of St. Andrew, why there is a feast, and about the guards that fled from Ravenloft, and he gave them sanctuary, and that's the reason why he became a saint. I'll put a link to that in the description down below, but it's a great player handout, and it gives you some context to what happened here with these guards, why they escaped and ran to Vlaki to seek shelter, and who was this brother Andrel that became a saint, and why did he become a saint. So it's kind of weaving and tying all of these locations and the lore together. Now, if you go to this next area, is the Kingsmen's Quarters, and there wasn't much in here at all. There is the yellow lichen here up on the walls and the ceiling to cause chaos pox, like in the other guard room. Probably the yellow lichen is, something that came from the dead bodies of the guards and the Kingsmen or whatever. So, but chaos pox and the yellow lichen is in here as well. Now, there is a hidden, loose flagstone that conceals a little cubby hole in the ground in here. And if the players find it, they're going to find 1d100 plus 50 Strahd coins in a sack in there, including a note. There's a note in there, and I created a new note. It's a player handout you can download. It's kind of like this old faded note, and it says, I had come to know a secret entry within the Lord's study to a covert treasury. Although my quest for it remains fruitless, yet once discovered, tidings will be sent forthwith, and we may lay our hands on the treasure and thus relieve ourselves of this wretched abode. So one of the things that's frustrating for DMs and for players is finding that treasure room behind the fireplace in Strahd's study that leads to a false treasure room to get to the main treasure room that's behind another secret door. I mean, you know, it's almost impossible to find Strahd's treasure room. It's really, really difficult unless you nudge the players along. So I thought putting this note in here with this gold would be like one of the Kingsmen is kind of betrayed Strahd, you know, probably before he became a vampire. Maybe that's the reason he came down here, is he found someone was trying to look for his treasure, and so he didn't know who it was. He just slaughtered all of them. So this note gives a very important clue that there is a treasury in Castle Ravenloft in the Lord's study, the secret entry in the Lord's study. So the players find the study, they know that there's going to be a secret room in there that they're going to have to find. So it's just a clue for the players to go, hey, wait, there's probably a secret treasury somewhere, and this note tells me it's in the study. So I included that in there. There's a link to the free or pay what you want player handout of this note in PDF. It looks really cool, and I'll put that in the description down below. And lastly, we have the Chamberlain office. And if Raoden's alive, and I got a theater of the mind map for that. If Raoden is alive, he will be here. The room contains 2 long swords, 2 shields, and 2 lances mounted on the wall. The players can remove those. Those are weapons the players can remove from the wall, but there's nothing else of interest here. If they do a DC 15 perception check, they'll reveal that there's some seams on the wall that leads to that secret door that takes you down to the dungeon. Now, if Raoden's here, this is where the players are going to have a final confrontation with him. Furthermore, there's a shadow demon that will also appear and begin attacking the players here, and they will attack to the death. Now, that's if Raoden's still alive. The shadow demon will always be here if the players enter in here. This is one location in which you could have a final conflict with Raoden, or if you're running the epic battle with Strahd, maybe Raoden becomes kind of that mini boss fight before Strahd, depending on your party size or how you want to role play it. So he's either going to be here for that final fight with that shadow demon, or he's going to be a low level boss fight for your party to encounter. Don't forget, there is that secret room DC 15 door that leads down here, down to the western stairs that head down there. So that is the Larders of the Ill Omen floor, or probably better referred to as the old guard and servant and staff floor, just below the main floor. Well, I hope you like this. Make sure you smash the like button. Subscribe to the channel if you're interested in getting those free player handouts and PDF guides. There's a link down below. And if you want to support me on this project and get access to the Foundry Adventure modules, other bonus content that I create as a thank you gift, please subscribe, become a member. There's a link down below. And until next time, this is Parm King signing off, and may all your roles be critically successful.